Outlet Liquor is your place to buy a case. Stock up and save when you shop the lowest prices available every day at Outlet Liquor. You never have to wait for a sale. The more you buy, the more you save. Only at Outlet Liquor.
What's your outlet?
Welcome, everybody, to I'll Hang Up and Listen, brought to you by Outlet Liquor, the place to buy a case over on Georgia Boulevard for all your Sabres game day needs, and, of course, your needs for the Super Bowl tomorrow. Get over to Outlet Liquor. And as I go through my shtick there in the beginning, peanut gallery is already filling up. Mauricio's already coming in hot. Yeah, definitely a lot to talk about. Yeah, I wish I could say that blame the long layoff, for that performance. They had a rough one too. Their last game going into the All-Star break. But I mean, other teams had long layoffs too, and I think that was probably by far the worst game by any single team in the league coming off the All-Star break. I mean, you had 8 total shots after two periods of play against another team coming off a layoff. Like, there's no excuses for it. Goaltending looked horrendous, even though he came up with some big saves. To try and keep him in the game when it was 4-2. But just top to bottom, there's really nothing to find a silver lining in today, Connor.
Yeah, it was really embarrassing. I was talking with a few people right at the end of the second period. That might be the worst period of Sabres hockey I've seen in years. That was just – it was bad effort, but for the most part, it comes down to execution. They weren't able to generate anything. There were no legitimate scoring chances. There was no rush. They couldn't get themselves out of the neutral zone. Calgary, I think, obviously had a pretty good plan in place, and teams have done that to the Sabres this year. They understand what they want to do. They want to run and gun. They want to get up the ice. They want to transition with speed. And bigger physical teams like that, who also do have some skill, have been able to slow down the Sabres a little bit this season. In certain games, they've been able to figure it out. But I think I'm really at a loss for words with trying to compartmentalize everything that happened after the Sabres went up 2-0. It was just a really abysmal result, and it leaves you wondering, where do they go from here? Something's got to happen, of course, and we'll get into this discussion about moves that need to be made. But, yeah, that was just an uninspiring effort, and a lot of questions need to be asked.
Yeah, and to that point, the trade deadline's a hot topic right now. As I told you before, coming to the show, I was getting into it with somebody on the Twitter machine, and essentially saying that, why you should be the GM. You want to give up assets to make this team better. Now they're bad. Now, I don't think the team is bad. Are they overachieving at times? Yes, absolutely. But I think you have a good core here, and the playoffs aren't out of the question, even after that performance. You got to kind of dust yourself off here. It sounds cliche, and get right back into it. But if you're Don Granato after that second period, like, I mean, I'm not saying I condone that type of style of coaching, but you got to be throwing garbage cans or something in that locker room to fire them up. They look like they were skating in the mud or sand, or however you want to board it, that entire second period. Like, their feet were not underneath them. Maybe the whole team shouldn't have been boozing, during their All-Star break. I mean, I say that lightly because every team's entitled to have some time off to themselves, 100%. But it literally looked like a team that spent a full week in the sun, boozing it up for sure. Like, without a doubt, that looked like a team that had spent a good part of their time off doing damage to their bodies. And I don't know, man. I like I said, I've been a big advocate of making a sensible deal or two at the deadline to give this team a chance, because personally, I think another second half collapse does this franchise a lot more harm than it does good. I really do believe it. I think you have the fans back. They're engaged again. They want to be at games. Like, they had a pretty good turnout from the looks of it on TV for the most part. Today. I know it was like a kid's day or something like that. Regardless, they looked like an okay turnout. Like, this time last year, like, you were lucky if you had 8,000 people in that arena. You were lucky to be at 50% capacity. You're nearing 14,000 plus again, digging yourself out of the basement in terms of attendance. And the last thing this organization needs is another second half collapse. You just can't justify it. So if that means parting ways with a first or a second round pick and a roster player to bring in a guy with some term left, that's going to help you team. I don't even care if you lose in the first round. I do not care. Get this team to the playoffs. Get this fan base to the playoffs. Like, I'll tell you right now, like, this city for that week and a half will be absolutely fucking electric again. It will be. And to think that you should stand put when you're this close again and not do anything it's poor management.
Yeah, they absolutely need to do something. I was just looking at the Sabres home record, 11-14-2 at home. That's just unacceptable. I don't know how they don't get up for home games, especially a game like this. You mentioned, I mean, Sabres 3 to 4 best players were down in the Bahamas all week. It looked like it was an actual hangover.
Literally.
Aside from the first 5 minutes when they were probably excited to be back, the Tage goal was unbelievable. Even Middlestat came through with a nice goal. But aside from those 2 scoring chances, they didn't have much. And it might be the best time to go on a Western road swing right now. The Sabres have played well in the past. I've gone to a lot of games out here in LA in the past 7 years, and they typically play the Kings well, and the Kings have always been pretty good. So Monday night, 7:30 game out here. I'll be there, and after that game, it's made it a lot less exciting, unfortunately. But this team has played significantly better on the road this season. Thankfully, the Ducks will be after that, and the Ducks look absolutely horrible. They conceded 60 shots to the Penguins last night. Gibson was unbelievable. He set a franchise record, I think, with 53 or 54 saves, and they still lost 6-3. Looked like one of my beer league games, to be honest. But yeah, it may be coming at the right time. I think this group kind of thrives on being together, being underdogs, being in a controlled environment. For some reason, they can't get up for these home games, which just doesn't make sense to me. And they have it in full buildings, but it looked like today was a full building.
Looked pretty full.
Yeah, I think obviously to switch up the culture, to switch to just kick them in the butt a little bit. Anything in the bottom 6, any type of defenseman. I think the goaltending is what it is, and you're gonna be hard pressed to find a goaltender at this time of year unless it's Demko. But yeah, something absolutely has to be done, because you could lose this fan base pretty quickly.
Yes.
You started to gain it back. This is the most promising the Sabres have been in 7 to 8 or 9 years. So these next couple of weeks, it's incredibly important, and we'll see what Kevin does.
Yeah, and again, you don't have to make moves like groundbreaking moves, right? You don't have to go out and get Jacob Chikrin. In fact, I mean, I'm not trying to validate or justify going to get Jacob Chikrin. Would it be nice? Sure. But if you're looking to make moves, and I'm not sure defensively, I know of some guys, how they're coming along in the pipeline defensively, but I know Ryan Johnson's a big question mark. I know he's a higher end prospect, but it's a big question mark whether or not he's going to sign at the end of this college season. I don't know. I'd be totally willing to make a deal for a Jacob Chikrin and have him for the next 2 years, knowing that defensively, maybe you're not as deep in the pipeline as you are up front. Again, I'd have to look and see how players are thriving in junior and back in Rochester. I'm not familiarized with that, but again, go get a guy like Luke Shen, $850,000 contract. You see kind of what it might cost to get a guy like him. Maybe a 3rd round pick at most. I can't see it being more than that. I'd be all for that. All for that. He's a big body, tough defenseman. He's a guy he can be to power what Samuelson is to Dahlin, maybe. If you pair them together, if you can make it work. Again, you need something on that second pairing because Henry Jokiharju and Jacob Bryson and whoever else you decide to flop besides Clegg, those guys aren't working. If you want to be a playoff team, and as I said earlier, playoff hockey is a different brand of hockey. It's not. Is it about being the more skilled team? Absolutely. But it's also about being the more physical team who wants it more, who's willing to do whatever it takes to get there. And if you're not that team physically, you're going to get dummied in the first round. You are. And here, I don't mind losing in the first round, but don't lose in an embarrassing fashion in the first round where you're just completely out, not just outplayed, but out physically embarrassed. And I think they need to get tougher. 100%. They need to get tougher. And again, that second line with Cousins, Quinn, and Peterka, Quinn and Peterka, they disappear too often. They do. Like, you can't have Dylan Cousins constantly carrying that line. You have to find it. If those two can't pick up the slack or, carry their own weight, you have to bring in somebody who can slot in there next to Cousins, maybe a Brock Besser, or a Timo Meyer, who can, make that a legitimate, consistent second line, or go find a centerman who can make other wingers on this team better and slide that second line down to your third line. Much like, not exactly, much like the way we were in 05 to 07 with Max, Roy, and Vanek. That was your third line for 2 years. It's not an indictment against them. It's more being deeper in the best possible position down the middle. That's just my opinion.
Yeah. I just looked at the hits for the game today. It was 25-8 Calgary. I think that tells you all you really need to know. They were completely outmuscled.
What was the shot count? I didn't look in the third period at the end.
The shot total ended up being 40-23, which is just like, I think it's way worse than that. It was 30-4 at one point. I think at one point in the second period, it was 30-4. I think the lack of physicality has a lot to do with that. They couldn't get the puck deep. They couldn't establish a forecheck. Even in the power play, I think it's been a consistent issue when they try to carry the puck into the zone. Other teams just tend to line up 2 forwards, maybe 1 defenseman right on the blue line, and they're able to stop them almost immediately every single time. The power play has been horrible. There's a lot wrong right now. And as excited and as optimistic as we were after that road trip leading into the Hurricanes game,
where they took, what was it, 7 or 8 points?
Yeah, turn it 180 degrees after the Hurricanes and the Flames game. This team, you can clearly see, as you mentioned with Peterka and Quinn, they're young and they disappear. As promising as they were earlier in the season, and at times they have been since, their games aren't quite there yet. I've had friends mention to me that they'd be fine with seeing Quinn go in a potential deal, whether that be for Meyer or Chikrin or anyone else. Kevin's got to take a hard look at everyone not named: Tage, Skinner, Tuck, Cousins, Dahlin, Power, Samuelson. Like, you got to look at the rest of the roster. Maybe not a Poso and Gergensons, because they fill a role and they're the only guys that really do have a level of physicality on the team. But everybody else, you got to look at with a fine-tooth comb, and you see, like, are these guys going to help us get to the playoffs this season? And not only this season, moving forward, when the window is going to be wide open for this team to compete, or at least it should be. You really got to take a hard look at this, because otherwise this could get ugly really, really quick.
Yeah, I'm looking now. I'm watching some of these goals. Dennis Gilbert, Buffalo area kid, getting a goal tonight. I'm sure his family was in
You
attendance.
guys always do that for some reason.
Yeah,
They come back to Buffalo and they always score. I've
yeah.
got Kane's the obvious one, but I feel like it happens pretty often.
I remember Kane's first game against Buffalo was rookie season in Buffalo. He scored so fast off the opening draw. His dad wasn't even in the seat yet. His dad didn't even see it.
Yeah.
um, but yeah, some of these goals, UPL played terrible. I mean,
Yeah.
he did not have a good game. Did he get help? No. But there were some saves out there that you look at and you're like, those are shades of the UPL I knew from last season.
There are a few soft ones for sure. The Gilbert one specifically. Later in the game, like I don't.
Only one that was bad.
Yeah, but 5-2, not 8 minutes left in the third period. We've all been there. At that time, you're not necessarily as motivated as you were earlier in the game. Obviously, the Gilbert one is huge. I think the third goal where it went in between his arm. Obviously, any goalie will be upset with that. You got to keep it tight. You got to control the rebound.
You got to seal the ice.
Yeah. But that's the guy that the Sabres have anointed as the number one goalie. Obviously, he's exceeded expectations this season, and he's kind of come into his own a little bit. But you got to look at that too and be like, hey, like this may not be as sure as we thought it was the past few weeks. You maybe give Comrie a shot on Monday night, or maybe Anderson for some stability. I wouldn't be surprised if they go Anderson on Monday, to be honest.
Against the Kings,
it seems like he's provided them a little bit of a reset every single time they've thrown him in. Whether it's his
numbers are good.
Yeah, I mean he's had a relatively good season, and we're talking for a 41-year-old. So I hope he's in that. To be honest, I really hope they play him against the Kings, because the Kings can come hard. They generate a lot of chances. Fiala and Kempe have had amazing seasons. They have a pretty solid defensive core. Their goaltending is also not that good, but yeah, I really hope they go with Anderson on Monday.
Yeah, Anderson or Comrie for sure. Comrie was his last performance. That was
the Jets.
And it was a win.
Yeah,
it was a 3-1 win. I think it was a 3-1 win, or was a 3-2. He played very well.
Yeah, it was 3-2. Sabres were up 3-0 for most of the game. They got
you thought he was going to pull the goose egg out, and in the third period they gave up 2. We'll check in on the peanut gallery. No comment, loss for words, no back checking, no support, poor puck management, no hitting, no physical presence, no grit. Sabres forwards, including Cousins, Quinn, and Krebs, could become amateur pastry turnover.
I'll to unpack there. I'll correct though, to be honest.
He's not wrong. He's not wrong.
It was a really, really poor performance, poor effort, everything about it.
UP looks shaky, poor position, needs to stand taller, follow and scope the puck. Let Comrie take goal next few games. UPL has lost confidence. Hold their defense and forwards accountable. Be a leader. Again, in terms of the confidence thing, I don't know yet. If we see a performance like that, then I would start to think that. But definitely UPL again left a lot to be desired tonight, and I think he goes in the locker room knowing that, it wasn't, obviously it's not just on him, but he didn't do what he needed to do to get them a win tonight.
The entire room has to take a look in the mirror. They'll probably fly out tomorrow. Maybe they'll take the night to decompress a little bit. But you got to turn the page pretty quickly, because if you don't get, like you said, 4 or 6, 5 or 6 on this Western road swing, then you may be out of it pretty quickly. The Capitals are playing the Bruins today on the road, so hopefully that is a loss for the Capitals. And the Sabres still have.
You need to gain some points back with the back-to-back losses.
It's not over by any means, but if they keep if they keep putting out efforts like that, it'll be over probably by March.
With Pittsburgh winning 6-3 late last night, and then you need Washington to lose one against. You said they're playing
the Bruins right now.
The Bruins right now. Okay, yeah. We do have a score on that.
Let's see.
You would hope that the Bruins come out with a win there.
0-0. 5 minutes into the game.
Okay.
I mean, they are unbelievable at home, and they have been all season. And the Capitals have been shaky. So that would be helpful. That would be at least a little bit of a silver lining going into Monday. But you need all the help you can get, and you gotta look in the mirror after that one and do the exact opposite.
Exactly. Jeffrey Jenks, if Kevin Adams doesn't address a lack of physicality by the trade deadline, I'm not going to be a happy camper. I agree. you're too soft. I'm not saying this is a soft team, but in terms of the team, the makeup, again, it's great to feel the vibes. That's a new buzzword, right? Vibes. Oh, they have the vibes. Like, I'm glad that we all feel like this team has the vibes, the right vibes you want in your locker room. That's fantastic. Great. I'm happy about that. But hockey is business, and business is winning games, and winning games get you to the playoffs. If you get this team to the playoffs physically, they're going to get dominated.
Yeah.
They're too small, too young. Not to say that I wouldn't be happy with a playoff appearance, maybe 1 or 2 playoff wins, but at the end of the day, like, you just don't want to be embarrassed physically. And right now, I mean, Lyubushkin was brought in the offseason to be kind of a physical presence that blue line. He had one moment in today's game, but he hasn't really been the same guy since that early season injury.
No.
Like, he just hasn't been.
It seems like he's getting injured every time he throws a big hit too. And aside from him, it's Dahlin, Okposo, and Gergensons.
And Cousins.
And Cousins, yeah, every now and then. But
yeah,
there aren't so many guys that are willing to lay their body on the line. And I don't want Tage doing it.
No. Well,
like, I don't necessarily want Tuck throwing his body around. Like, those guys have filled their role all season, and that's generating scoring chances. And looking at that. But you got to bring someone in on the bottom 6 or on the D-core that can throw their body around, because right now no one else is doing it.
And here's the thing, like, and we'll talk about this in a little bit, you know, the makeup of this team and the good contracts that Kevin Adams has some of these guys locked into. It's great that you, like, right now you have 3 of your core pieces in Samuelson, Tage, and Cousins. You have them locked in until 2030 at less than a $20 million cap hit. I think it's like 18.5, 18.75. That's unbelievable. Like, you're possibly, I personally think Samuelson's already outperforming his contract, personally.
Yeah.
He's giving you top pairing minutes. I personally believe that he's a big reason why Dahlin is having the season he's having, because Dahlin is finally excuse me. Dahlin has finally found that complement to his game where it gives him the ability to take more chances and be the defenseman that got him drafted first overall.
Yeah.
But with that being said, to your point, you don't want 2 of those 3 guys always having to be the one that answers the bell or be the physical presence. Like, I love it that Samuelson's a physical guy, and he should be. But Dylan Cousins, you just got done paying him, you know, a 7-year extension for over $7 million a year. You don't want him having to be the guy that has to go in there and throw affairs with somebody whenever you have to stick up for a teammate. I just, you know, Dahlin, the same thing. Like, you see Dahlin do it too. I love the chippiness out of Dahlin, but even today, a couple times it was like uncalled for. Like, don't put yourself in those positions.
Yeah.
You know, that's why, you know, and again, I know the buzzwords of grit and playing with sandpaper, that's what they are, they're buzzwords, but they hold a lot of weight in most conversations, at least for me. This team needs that. Like, I think I might have mentioned this last time I was live with you, or maybe it was recently with a friend, but this team is in desperate need of a forward like Keegan Colasar. Like, he would be a perfect fit on a team like this. A guy who can go out there. He's not going to give you a ton of scoring. Like, he's not, you know, maybe a little bit less than what Casey Middlestat gives you, but he's going to go out there and he's going to make teams second guess every time they're out there. And they're going to make taking second guess about getting physical with your star players. You know, just because you want guys doesn't mean you want to bring them in to be an enforcer or a fighter, but you want to keep other teams honest. And that's what guys like that do. I'm not advocating going to get friggin' Ryan Reeves. I don't want Ryan Reeves.
Yeah.
I want a guy who's going to go out there and play like a Nick Delorier or a Keegan Colasar. So players like that are going to keep other teams honest and make them second guess every time they go into a corner along the wall for a puck battle, or, you know, are going to, you know, bust you in the mouth if you try and take liberties with your goaltender, or make it a harder time for you in front of your own net. Like, that's what this team needs. And when I think getting more physical, that's what I want. And then obviously, again, I can't overstate enough, they need help on their blue line.
Yeah, it's pretty apparent right now. Olofsson and Middlestat aren't going to do that for you. Can you imagine them in the playoffs? It's not going to get it done. You've got skill guys on the third line, and it doesn't hurt sometimes, but at the same time, like you need that level of grit, you need that level of physicality, and the Sabres haven't had that for a long time. So of course, like yeah, that obviously needs to be looked at. The defense in the same vein, Yoki Haru and Bryson are just they're getting tummy. They have no puck awareness. They can't move. They can't
none. It's so infuriating.
It's really bad, and they might have known that going in. Like obviously, it's a relatively weak third pairing, but they're getting exposed on a level that's just unsustainable moving forward.
Did they have playing with power today?
So it must have been. So it was Dahling and Samuelson, Power.
Gosh. Lately, it's been obviously Yoki Haru.
Yeah, I don't know. Let's see.
Because to start the season, I think they wanted that the guy to be Lyubushkin, and I think in the beginning of the season for a small,
Lyubushkin,
but he just hasn't lived up to that bill.
It might have been Lyubushkin, but either way, it's just not cutting it right now. Like you look at a team like the Bruins, they've been good for a long time, obviously, but this season specifically, they're just perfectly constructed. All of their defensemen have a little bit of skill, but they also have physicality. They have 4 lines that can both create chances and stop the other team. They're on a points-setting record pace for a reason. I think the new coach is helping a little bit. Montgomery thankfully he cleaned himself up, but
yeah,
if you watch them and the way that they play, of course that's a level that's unrealistic for the Sabres to aspire to right now. But that's the model, and that's the team that you're going to be chasing for a long time. They're not going to go away anytime soon. They have a culture there. They have a level of commitment to that style of play that, gosh, they were in the Stanley Cup final in 2011, and I don't think they've missed the playoffs since. So it's a long road up to the top, to the mountaintop for the Sabres team. And right now, like, you don't have to think about it at that point, but like you at least have to look at that and be like, what can we do to get even a tiny bit closer to that? And I guess we'll see what happens, but that's the model.
Yeah. And to your point about the Bruins, I mean, like you look at all these teams, man. You look at the Bruins, you look at the Tampa Bay Lightning, the Colorado Avalanche. I mean, even though they haven't gotten past the first round in a fucking 2 decades or whatever it is, the Toronto Maple Leafs, the Capitals, like their sustained success, is you find those core guys. You keep like. For the Bruins, it's always been Marchand, Bergeron, now Pasternak. I'm assuming they lock him in. There's no way they let him walk, right?
He's gonna get like 11 a year.
Yeah, it's gonna be insane. And, the core guys that they've kept around with Tampa, it's always been Stamkos, Hedman, Braden Point, Kucherov. You lock in those core guys, Vasilevsky. The obvious names in Colorado with McKinnon, Gabriel Landeskog, now it's Cale Makar. They're continuously building around them. And the Blackhawks in their heyday when they were winning cups, like you lock those guys in much like Kevin Adams is at discount, honestly locking them in early. And not always having to rely on the draft to be it. Like, again, you want to build through the draft, but when you get yourself to a point, you don't value your first or second round picks as much as you used to, right? Yeah. Like, look at what constantly Tampa Bay has been able to do at the deadlines, like constantly. And not saying you have to go out and get rentals. Like, I don't want rentals. This team, unless again I go back to Luke Shen, who's a guy who's a very low cost rental. Like, that's a guy who might be able to help you now. And if he likes the makeup of the team and likes the direction they're going in at the end of the season, maybe he wants to come on and sign for like another 2-year deal because I think he's like 33. Like, we're not in the market for a rental, but there are deals out there to be had with teams like a Vancouver that's obviously looking to solve pieces. Arizona, who's very much in the Connor Bedard sweepstakes. Montreal, very much in the Connor Bedard sweepstakes. Teams that might have guys with term that are willing to sell off their pieces for assets, as long as you're willing to, and this being the last year that you can really weaponize your cap space with the cap expecting to go up in the future. If there ever was a time to do it, now is the time. And you look up and down this roster, who's staying and who's going.
I mean, as we discussed, those 10 names that are untouchable, I think obviously you look at as staying, but everybody else on the roster, you look at and be like, I don't know if they're going to help us in the not only next 2 months, but next 2 to 3 years. Middlestat and Olofsson at this point, like nice goal from Middlestat today. He does that every so often, but there's no consistency and there's no defensive physicality to his game whatsoever.
No.
Olofsson, obviously, like he scored goals recently, but that's about all he does.
Mm-hmm.
And if he's not doing that, then what is he offering? I don't think he had a shot on goal today.
No.
Tyson Jost is, I mean, I think he's been sort of a revelation, but that's the mold of the type of guy this team needs. You mentioned Toronto hasn't made it out of the first round in however many years. I don't think there's any coincidence to that. And I kind of fear that the Sabres are built, at least in their current form, they're built way more like the Maple Leafs than they are the Bruins. And if they continue along the same trajectory of keeping all these skill guys up and down all four lines, the defense only has one or two guys that can throw a hit and below average goaltending, you're going to turn into the Maple Leafs. You're going to have Tage Thompson as your Austin Matthews. You're going to have Alex Tuch as your Mitch Marner. You're going to have Jeff Skinner as your Alex Nylander. And you're going to get to the first round and you're going to get dummied by a bigger, faster, just as skilled team. And then nothing's ever going to happen. So you look at the Leafs too, like, of course, like they're good, they're exciting, they're fun. But if you take the pulse of their fan base, they're all pissed. They all know what's going to happen. So it's a warning sign for where the Sabres are right now. And it's you could do anything to make it not that at the deadline. So hopefully they do.
I'm only going to disagree with you in this sense, just because those guys are locked into such like expensive deals.
Oh, for sure.
Whereas, Austin Matthews, once his deal is up, like he's going to demand $12 million plus. You have Tage Thompson at $7.2 million.
No, exactly. Like Kevin's been much smarter.
Yeah.
In terms of Cousins deal, like everything about it. Like, of course, like the Leafs were a little bit desperate to get Marner and Matthews and they're done, but I'm just talking to specific type of players.
No. But that's where I agree with you though. But this is where I think that Buffalo could be better than the Leafs, is because you have that flat, Dahlin's getting probably $10, $11 million a season.
Yeah.
I don't know what Power is going to demand. Now, when he played last year, they burned the first year of his entry-level deal, I believe, right?
I think so, yeah.
And now this second year. So this third year, entry levels are 3-year deals. He's eligible to get re-signed or probably extended, I would say, this offseason. I would imagine, right?
Yeah. I would say it's either this offseason or during the year next year, yeah.
I think you got to do exactly with him what you've been doing with Samuelsson, what you've been doing. You got to lock him in, all of these guys in long term. I mean, what is Owen Power going to demand? Like, is he going to demand 7 to 8 million?
I think as good as he's been this year. I was even watching him today. The things he does is
for sure.
It's uncanny. So if he can, he's only going to get better. Obviously, I think I saw someone say the combo between Dahlin and Power could be upwards of 21 million. They could demand the exact same price.
I tend to agree. Obviously, where he lacks in the offensive output that Dahlin has was where maybe if you're Kevin Adams, you try and get in his ear this offseason and say, hey, we'll give you this same term, 2030, $8 million on the table right now, and see if he takes it. Because I think he's worth every penny. He will be worth every penny. And if he takes that and you lock up Dahlin $10, $11 million a year, and you get those two under $20 million a season, and you could have Samuelsson, Dahlin, Tage Thompson, Cousins, and Owen Powers, all five of those guys for under $40 million.
Yeah.
Like that is where, and going back to your point, you could do better than where the Leafs are and give yourself that flexibility, because it's not that Kyle Dubas doesn't want to be like bring that type of makeup to his team. He's tried it with Wayne Simmons. He's tried it with didn't he have Kyle Clifford too for a moment?
I think so, yeah.
Like he's tried, but those guys at that point in their career can only offer you so much.
For sure.
It's not like you're getting the Wayne Simmons from, his early days in Philly that can give you that scoring touch. He wasn't that guy anymore. It's kind of like you're getting, a less like Okposo is like a poor, like isn't a guy who's going to go out there and be as physical as Wayne Simmons or, fight as much as say Wayne Simmons would. That's not an indictment against Kyle Okposo.
No,
but you're going to give yourself the flexibility to go find those guys who can play a tougher, meaner game, but still provide you depth scoring and not just be there to fill a roster spot and send out there for 8 to 10 minutes a night.
Yeah, for sure. That's absolutely got to be the target. I'm not sure from a forward perspective in the bottom 6 exact names that are available. I feel like we should definitely look into that because that's what the fan base is going to be clamoring for. The defense wasn't like necessarily the issue tonight because if you're being outshot 30-4 in the second period, like have as good a defense as you want. It's just that doesn't matter.
Agreed.
Tage, Tuck, and Skinner generated some chances, but like even they can get shut down pretty easily. So like if a team is gonna throw all of their eggs in the basket in terms of shutting down the guys that they need to shut down, like you got to have some secondary support. And the Sabres on a consistent basis, obviously they've gotten it here and there in certain games from Olofsson and middle stat here and there, and obviously early on with the kid line with Peterka, Quinn, and Cousins, but at least recently it hasn't been there. So it's got to be a point of emphasis moving forward.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. Just to recap, obviously, we'll go over the game notes here in a little bit, but a lot has happened in the NHL, obviously, over the last week since me and you were both on together. Obviously, the big deal off the island with Bo Horvat getting dealt to the Islanders. I don't think we've been able to touch on that and what that, they locked him into an extension to. The chips are starting to fall. In terms of who else was just traded.
Tarasenko as well to the Rangers.
Tarasenko to the Rangers, which is that kind of, I guess that was a head scratching move for Patrick Kane, even though he didn't let anybody know he was
pissed about it.
Which I don't understand because it's not like he was public about wanting to leave.
No.
Up until that point, from what I knew, like he was looking to potentially sign an extension.
He's mentioned things in the past few weeks about like if the right opportunity presents itself. But the way he talked about it yesterday, I've actually never seen a player like publicly comment on a trade like that until yesterday. It's really strange. Like you can tell he's unhappy, and it seemed like the Rangers was where he wanted to go. So yeah, I mean, Tarasenko.
I don't want him in Buffalo.
No, the way he's been, of course, like. I think you take his performance this season with a grain of salt, given how bad the Blackhawks are and the lack of opportunities he's had. But at this point in his career, like he's not the type of guy we need, at least at this juncture. As we've talked about, like the lack of grit, the lack of physicality, the lack of just creating scoring chances on your own. Like he's not going to do that at this point in his career. So yeah, I think everybody's in agreement for the first time ever. Like,
yeah,
we can punt on Kane at least at this deadline and maybe see what happens in the offseason. And that will be widely like determined based upon like what Kevin does in these next few weeks. So
and he'll be what? I think he's 34 now.
Yeah,
I believe, right?
But like in the right environment, like his game would be great. Like you slot him in on a first and second line on a really good team, whether that's the Bruins or the Hurricanes or even. They wouldn't trade him out west probably, but like if you put him in the right environment, he'll be great. He's got some of the best hands in the league still, and he always will as long as he's there.
People are speculating with Dallas. If he's a true Buffalonian, he'll never go to Dallas or Toronto. Stay away.
That would be a real gut punch. But I mean, it is what it is. The Tarasenko deal was interesting though. Like a few of my friends who are Rangers fans weren't necessarily happy with it. I mean, he scored in his first shot, I think, the other night.
Pretty quick.
Encouraging. He's obviously another very skilled player who doesn't really contribute on the defensive end. The Rangers do have a lot of that, and their defensive core is obviously really good. So maybe he's the perfect.
DeAndre Miller.
Yeah, he's potentially the perfect fit for them. He obviously has an incredible amount of skill. So we'll see what happens with that. I mean, if you have Shesterkin in the net and you add guys that can put the puck in the net, like you're in pretty good shape. I think they were my preseason cup pick, to be honest, just with how amazing Shesterkin can be at his
imagine going That's like when we went from Hasek to Miller, going from Lundqvist to Shesterkin. That's got to be nice, right?
Yeah, for sure. Obviously, the Bruins have kind of got rid of any doubt of who the favorite is now. I miss Allmark more and more.
Swayman's the guy that could be, on a different team come next year because
they're not going to need him. They don't need to split up that net anymore. We saw it with Allmark. I said every season he was here, how unbelievably good he could be on a team with a better defensive system. With better skill players, with forwards that could actually score. And you're seeing it now. He's a very, very good goalie.
I always knew he had the ability to be a legitimate 1A. What irritated me is that I thought they should have traded him at the deadline when he did not want to sign in season. I think, for me, you look at the history of that decision. We've dealt with that here in Buffalo. Chris Drury did that, when he was going to his UFA year. He didn't want to be distracted with contract negotiations in season. For me, wouldn't you want to get that done and over with and have it in the rear view rather than, deal with the constant questions from the media? When you hear players say stuff like that, it usually means they're packing their shit.
Yeah. If I were Allmark, of course, why would you want to? Given the lack of support he had his entire time he was here. I also read something that Regeer also didn't like to do contracts during the season for some reason. I'm glad that Kevin Adams doesn't have that policy.
Yeah.
As we've seen with Cousins and whoever else they've signed during the year. But it's a tough one. Allmark he would have helped this team significantly. I think the defense isn't great, but he's much farther along than where UPL is right now.
Mm-hmm.
They still got to figure out the net. Thankfully, Levi looks great. His performance in the Beanpot the other night was
my God. Well, he just had a 50-plus save performance, I think, last night, right?
I didn't see that, but the dude he's incredible. That glove save he had in the Beanpot when they were up 2-0.
Oh, against BU was unbelievable.
He is so good. He tracks the puck as well as any goalie prospect I've seen in a long time. He's so quick. His angles, his squaring of the shot, everything about his game, aside from his height, which with the way he plays, I think he plays bigger than he is. As a goalie nerd, I cannot wait to see what he can do. He plays the way I want to play. Every time I play, sometimes I'm just be a little bit more like Levi. Be a little bit more like Levi.
Yeah, right.
Be as good on your edges. Be as aware of where the puck is going at all times. But no, he's unbelievable, and that's a conversation we might have to get into if we keep going along this path that we're going on is the future.
I skated early this morning from 7 to 8 with a bunch of the 11-day power play guys at Harbor Center, and during the set, I was gassed going into the game, watching the game today, and it was funny. First period ended 2-0. Obviously, you only had 4 shots on net, but 2 goals to show for it. I just kind of dozed off after the puck dropped to start the second period. And I couldn't remember, it was around the 10-minute mark of the second period when I woke up, but I probably slept for a little bit longer that, when we take whistles into consideration. But I woke up and it was 4-2. I'm like, what the fuck just happened? What? It was 2-0, but I fell asleep.
Escalated really, really quickly.
Yeah, literally. I just, again, I rewound it and watched the sloppy play, and it literally looked just like they had ankle weights on, all of them. Yeah. In their own zone when they were pinned, just the inability to get to loose pucks, win puck battles, get in lanes. It just wasn't there. The Calgary Flames were just having their way with us. And this is the perfect way to explain it. It looked like in practice when you're running the power play and you have the penalty kill hold their sticks upside down.
Yeah.
That's literally what it felt like. It's like they're not getting their sticks on pucks, nothing. There was no battle winning at all. And again, I don't like to use as an excuse. I hope that's what it is. The partying maybe they did in Cancun or wherever the fuck they were. Was it
the Atlantis Resort in the Bahamas?
The Bahamas.
I was following closely all week. It looked like a great time.
Yeah, it looks like they had a blast. I mean, again, you want to have those times with your teammates sometimes, but
young kids, I mean, you can't tell them not to.
no, you can't. You can't.
No,
You
and
want them to have fun.
I don't blame them. Like, I think they're young. Like, when I did that at that age, like, you can recover quickly from something like that.
Yeah.
They got back. I think they left on Wednesday, and they had Thursday and Friday in Buffalo to recalibrate their bodies. I don't necessarily think that's the reason. The Flames are a good team, and as we'll see on Monday, the Kings are a really good team. They have a similar level of skill and speed that the Sabres do, but they also, as we've discussed, they have that physicality.
Yeah.
If the Sabres play like that on Monday night, they're going to get run out of the building, and I may run out of the building myself.
Yeah, I'm surprised more fans didn't run out of the building today.
Yeah.
They went up 5-2.
After that second period,
Buffalo's come back from those deficits plenty of times this seseason.
for sure.
But, yeah, this team just hates 2-goal leads, by the way. They just fucking hate it.
It's the worst league in hockey.
It is, but this team especially despise it. Literally just and on Sabretooth's birthday too.
Oh,
of all days.
I hate to see it. You hate to see it. I just found it funny that they have like an actual birth date for their mascot. Like, who does that?
Yeah, this is the first time I've ever heard of anybody celebrating the mascots.
Whatever you got to do to jump up fan engagement, but
I guess. I mean, normally you just want to win.
Yeah, that always helps. And the way they're performing at home, it's just it's so bad. I don't know what it is. It's gotten to the point where you start to wonder if they're just in their own heads. Of course, they didn't play well, but that's kind of why I'm excited for this week. Like, they've shown that they can go into a road building against all odds, be the underdog, and hopefully ramp up the intensity a little bit. Just get the puck deep, throw a few hits. You have the skill. You're going to score goals. They've scored goals all season long. You just got to play a simplified game. And they've gotten around the teams that have tried to stop them at the blue line, like clog up the neutral zone by dumping it deep, getting your guys down there that can actually skate, Peterka, Cousins, Tuck, and just forecheck. Just grind away until you can get an ugly goal. Not every goal needs to be Tage toe dragging somebody and going top shelf. Not every goal needs to be a backdoor one-timer. Forecheck, grind it out, shoot the puck, do whatever you can to do to get a dirty goal. That's what we need right now. And unfortunately, it doesn't seem like they're capable of doing that on a consistent basis. And that's where
me and you have talked plenty of times too that you can't understate how important it is to have a good bottom six. Yeah. And right now, I mean, at what point are we promoting Peyton Krebs to the second line?
It's got to be soon. I mean,
like
that, yeah.
I don't know. I'm sure there's some kid, some people in the analytics side of things that want to point to that line. It's like, well, they're doing this or well, I mean, they disappear too often.
Yeah.
Like, you brought Quinn in, you drafted Quinn to be a goal scorer. He is not a goal scorer right now. I mean, who do you value more right now? Do you value Jack Quinn or JJ Peterka more? I'm JJ Peterka.
Yeah, I mean, he plays a much more complete game.
Yeah, like, that's a guy in the playoffs I want more on my roster than probably right now than Jack Quinn, because there's no shootouts in the playoffs
for sure.
Like, absolutely. Which is a nice advantage to have. He has filthy hands, but he just disappears. And again, he's still young. He's what, 22?
Yeah,
like, he's young. Peterka's young. But Peyton Krebs, after that long scoring slump to start the season, he's really, really turned it around playing with Girgensons and Okposo. And maybe, and I've said this before, maybe this is a situation where you got to take one of those guys. In my opinion, it should be Quinn. Put him down there with them two. Make him learn how to play a more physical brand of hockey. And when I say that, not be a guy who goes out there and looks just to be physical, but do exactly what Peyton Krebs has done down there.
Yeah.
Like, not fight, but, win board battles, engage in front of the net. Play a brand of hockey that has a little bit of sandpaper in it. Because that's what Peyton Krebs has done now. And it's really been a big positive for his game playing with Girgensons and Okposo. So I think that is, if I'm Granato, that's the next move I'm making, is finding a way that makes sense to get Peyton Krebs on that second line. I think he's centering that line down there with them right now, but he has shown he can play on the wing.
Yep.
Find a way to make it happen. Like, that's what I would do.
Yeah, you got to switch up something after those 2 games.
Yeah.
You just got dog walked consecutively in your own building. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they did, to be honest. Like, take the night. I don't know. They probably won't practice tomorrow. Maybe they would. They do a morning practice and fly out after that. But yeah, something's got to give. I think Granato he's at least shown at certain points he's got a pretty good pulse of the team and what to tinker with when you're at a real moment of truth. And I think after a game like that, you blow a 2-goal lead, you're getting outshot 30-4 in the second period after a 9-day layoff, and you put that performance out there. I think he's got a general sense of, all right, we gotta do something here. So I wouldn't be surprised if he does. Yeah, I think. I mean, anybody not named Alex Tuch, Tage Thompson, or Jeff Skinner, or Dylan Cousins, like, you gotta have at least some brand of physicality if you're going to contribute to the team.
Yep.
I don't think you're ever going to get it from Middlestat and Olofsson. I think that's kind of a lost cause at this point. And they might even know that, because what you see is what you get with those guys. But if you're Jack Quinn or Peterka or anybody else, like, yeah, maybe putting them on the fourth line and just having them forecheck, grind it out, have a new aspect of their game that they can contribute something, because otherwise they're not contributing what they're supposed to contribute, which is goals. So yeah, that's not a bad idea.
Yeah, again, like, when that top line, it doesn't really happen very often, but if they're not clicking or they're not having a good night, like, your confidence in this team winning a hockey game goes down dramatically.
Yeah,
because your bottom 9 players haven't shown the ability. Your bottom 9 forwards haven't shown the ability to put the team. You got to put the team on their back, but be consistent enough to pick up the slack when your top 3 aren't clicking or not playing well. And here's the thing: what if Tage Thompson's knocking wood injury was worse? What if his injury is worse?
Yeah, I mean, like we said last time, if you lose him, you can sign and
mail it in. Mail it in.
Yeah.
You know, and it's true. It might as well have been when Eichel got hurt, when we had Taylor Hall. The whole expectation was them 2 together were supposed to be phenomenal, and it didn't end up working that way. Eichel was dealing with a lot of injuries during the season, and then the eventual neck injury that, ended up ending his season. But God forbid something like that happens to Tage or Tuch or Skinner. And then, I mean, again, Tage, especially a guy who is on pace for close to 60 goals this season, at number 35 tonight. Those guys go down. Any of those guys go down, your first line takes a hit that your team can't afford to take.
Yeah.
So, some more comments here. Garbage performance. We got tossed around like school girls on the ice, by a much more physical team. Oh, we already went over this one. Chris Derrick, how pathetic. Just keep looking for fancy plays instead of just shooting it on net. The fact that this team has such a lousy effort in front of their fans. Again, we just spoke to that at home, but look incredible on the road is BS. Paramat pictures, throwing garbage cans. Page right out of Shoresy. Yeah. Season 2 just announced too, I believe. Yeah, can't wait. UPL is not the answer, present and future. Poor positioning, poor following the puck, needs to stand taller. Just get ready for more Mauricio. turnovers, pastry chefs. Poor puck management, every damn player. Lost cause, no comment, lost for words. Always excuses, always apologies, always justification. Same old Sabres. Unprepared, uninspired. Where's the coaching? Circus act, home games. Pagula, ringleader. Trade for a goaltender. UPL is a scrub. Trade him or demote him. Get a defenseman, Adams family. We always get pushed around. Thanks, Adams, for nothing. Quinn and Paterka sending the AHL for more seasoning. That's out of the question right now. They'd have to clear waivers, I believe, right? Yeah, that's out of the question. Solutions, help, SOS. That was a grim game, boys. Feels bad, man. When push comes to shove in the months going into the playoffs, you need to get a tough to get tougher and show the opposition you're not going to break or give into their shit. 100% agree, Chris. If they brought in someone to bring in the physicality up to the front, I fear the coaching staff would turn them into the soft skilled players that we already have and don't really need. I don't know about that. If you bring in a seasoned guy who knows his role, that knows he's not going to be that guy, I don't think that the coaching staff would try and turn him into, to be a skill guy. I think that he would serve his purpose in the bottom six.
Yeah. I sure would hope not. That would be
that'd be wild.
That would be a
hey, bring in Ryan Reeves and just throw him in on your second line. Let's go, God.
Yeah.
You're gonna get that line off the ground.
Yeah.
I don't know what it's gonna take. I don't know what the next month has. I said this morning after hockey in the locker room with the boys that this next 2 weeks are going to determine a lot, I think, of what Kevin Adams' decisions will be at the deadline, because every point from here out matters so much, and you can't really afford to have stinkers like this.
No,
like even getting loser points, like they matter so much right now. I mean, you get a loser point, you're still only 1 point. You'd be 2 points back from Pittsburgh right now instead of 3.
Yeah.
Find weight, you got to grind, and to the point of being a tough rock team, grind out games to make sure they get to overtime, even when you're not having your best game, to get those loser points. I don't know. I don't know what has to be done. I don't know who's available out there. Obviously, 2 big names just came off the board and both Tarasenko and Horvat. And again, I don't think you're going to see a big splash out of Kevin Adams, but something needs to be done. You need to send it, not just a message to your team, but a message to the fan base that you truly care about winning and truly care about changing the culture, and allowing another late season collapse is not showing that you care about improving the culture and keeping the fans around.
Yeah.
Did I lose you?
That would be a crippling blow to the trajectory of this team.
Yes.
Everything that they've done to win back the fan base, to win back the feeling, to remind everybody of 05-06, to remind everybody of 06-07, and even of 2011 when they made the playoffs and eventually lost the 7 games to the Flyers. That team was, the last time we went, that team at least was exciting, encouraging, and they had, of course, they had Ryan Miller, which is the ultimate question moving forward, who is going to take this net and not give it back. And in my opinion, it's going to be Devin Levi, but we're going to have to wait a couple of years for that. So in the meantime, you don't have that 100% sure answer in goal. And I'm not going to give up on UPL because he's made strides. He's been great. But while you don't have that sure thing, you need to do whatever you can to fill out that bottom 6, to make your defense at least passable. Because right now it's kind of a joke. And if you're not going to score 4 or 5 goals a night, you're going to lose every single game. So this upcoming road trip is do or die. It really is. If they lose all 3, you maybe just mail it in. If you win 1 of 3, maybe that encourages you more to make a deal. And if you even win 2 or 3 or 3 of 3, maybe that signals okay, we had 2 really, really bad games and we play better on the road, but
that'd be the ultimate conundrum. If you go 3 for 3, win all 3 on the road, and you come home and you just can't figure it out.
We would all be happy with that. Of course, there could be a trend they don't play as well at home, and that needs to be addressed. But if they win all 3 on this road trip, Monday's going to be tough. The Kings are a very good team, and they're at the end of their build right now, and they obviously brought in Fiala to help with that, and it seems like it's worked. But the Ducks and the Sharks, you absolutely have to win those. You need 4 of 6. If you don't get 4 of 6, see you later. The Capitals are up 1-0 on the Bruins right now. So it's going to get scary pretty quickly once these teams round into form. The Panthers, who we all thought potentially could have won the Atlantic this year, they're coming on strong. You saw Kachuk in the All-Star game. He was unbelievable. And they have so much skill. they're similarly constructed as the Sabres are, but they probably have more skill. And they is not as much physicality as they have as like the Bruins. They probably have more than the Sabres. Every team in the league probably has more than the Sabres, and we saw that today. So yeah, it's gonna get real pretty quickly here.
Tougher. You just need to get tougher. Speaking of the All-Star game, skills competition, horrendous.
Yeah, I didn't watch much of it. It put me to sleep.
It was so bad.
It was so cringe. It's just like, what are we doing?
Yeah, we posted a video from the we posted that video from the 2 goalies 1 mic handle and of the 99 or 98 skills competition and how much better that looked, even with the grainy video. Like, it was just like they were all smiling, they were all having fun. It was quick. The breakaway relay, it really showcased what was great about the players back then. You know, they actually used the helmet cam the entire time, whereas I think you got barely any use out of it this year. And just the gimmicky stuff, the whole golf shot, that was so fucking stupid. And like, you could tell the players wanted nothing to do with the stupid questions they were being asked. Like, it's just dumb. But it did seem like the Atlantic team was getting into it during the actual game itself. It looks like they were having a little bit of fun. And then like that kind of stuff. I mean, I would even be in favor of just going back to the 5-on-5 East versus West. Like, just do that. Mic up the players. Mic up the right players that are gonna, make the best of it and make it entertaining, like the way you guys, like the way they used to do with like Jeremy Roenick back in the day, who was always very outspoken. Actually, one of the only players ever in the history of the game to actually throw hits during the All-Star game, and he hit the same player he did 3 times, and it was the same player all 3 times, and it was a coincidence. He didn't mean to. He addressed this on a podcast. Do you know what player that was?
No, I don't.
Alexei Zhitnik. He hit him 3 different times in 3 different All-Star games. And he wasn't targeting him. He just happened to be the guy. Not saying you got to go out there and hit people, but just, find guys that are entertaining and make it fun for the people watching at home. And enough with the gimmicks in the skills comp. Like, just, I don't need it. I really don't need it. Like,
I mean, if you're hoping for Gary Bettman to make meaningful and tangible change to any of this, like, don't hold your breath. He doesn't care. I think he's getting everything he can out of this job, and he will until he kicks the can, to be honest. Like, I honestly do not think he cares about the quality of the game, the health of the league, anything other than that. And I think he's shown that over the years. I mean, the ESPN deal, I think, is obviously the best thing that's happened to hockey in a long time. Same with TNT. But other than that, which is just broadcast money for the league, he doesn't care. He's not going to do anything. He's not going to have focus groups. He's not going to ask anybody their opinion, because for him, like, it's a niche sport. It's the 4th most popular sport in North America, and it always will be. So, as long as he's at the helm, I don't think anything's going to change.
Do you remember it was a show, NHL Cool Shots?
Not off the, that might have been before
I'm a little bit older than you, but it was a show that they used to do just on ESPN. It was fucking awesome. Even back, I remember they almost unveiled the Sabres jerseys once, the goat head jersey once on NHL Cool Shots. They did like an almost reveal show. It was pretty cool. But there was this one episode where this one girl was interviewing Pavel Bure, and he started hitting on her in Russian. It was so cringy, but it was so funny. Chris Peters, friend of the program, did an article on it once when he was working with ESPN, and he goes, like, he kept on like trying to teach her Russian, and she goes, "Oh, what does that mean?" He's like, "Oh, it means you are beautiful. You are beautiful." And he kept hitting on her. One of the greatest hockey players of his time in his era. And personally, in my opinion, I know Ovechkin's chasing Gretzky, but I think Bure would have made it interesting had he had a full healthy career, in terms of, where he'd be in terms of the goal scoring kings, because that guy averaged 50 goals a season when he was healthy. Hit a couple times. And that was the dead puck era where, you still had 2-line pass and things like that. I couldn't have only imagined, had he been healthy coming out of like the lockout years, even a little bit in old age, what he can be able to do. But just entertainment and content the NHL used to put out back in the day. I enjoyed that more back then, as even though I was a kid, than what I see now. It's just fucking garbage. Even the ESPN deal, it's like, You have to fucking subscribe to ESPN Plus. It's stupid. Like,
it is nice for out of towners. The fact that I can watch every single Sabres game with just the click of a button is so amazing.
I'm sure it's great. It's great, but for those people who already live in Buffalo, like, why do I have to subscribe to this to watch these games?
It's dumb. But yeah, for out of towners, it's amazing.
But like I said, in terms of fixing that in the Pro Bowl, the NFL Pro Bowl, they actually had fun. Like football, you can tell they were having fun.
It was definitely better. It was definitely better than the actual game that they'd done in the past because that was pointless. I mean that's a step in the right direction for sure. But at the same time,
Peyton Manning coming off the field at the end of the game and freaking out on the ref.
Yeah,
that was great. That's fantastic.
But at the end of the day, they're just doing these things to fill time, to fill sponsorship requirements.
Yeah.
It's hard to say what's the perfect answer for it, but obviously the NHL All-Star Game can do a lot better than what they've done recently.
Yeah. We'll just go fucking play on a pond at this point if you're gonna keep it mix.
Seriously. Roller hockey.
Or make the All-Star game an outdoor game then. Like I don't know what you gotta do.
Yeah.
Like go play it at Lake Tahoe again, like you did that one game during COVID.
Yeah.
Like figure something out, man. Like because it's losing more and more interest every single year, and that skills competition was so fucking pathetic. I would just go back to the old skills of the late 90s, early 2000s when players actually gave a shit. That's just my opinion. But do you have anything else?
Not that I wouldn't rehash from what we've said already. I think obviously you have to look at this one and try to compartmentalize what happened in terms of the lack of effort or the lack of scoring opportunities. Obviously, defense has been an issue all season long, but you look at it for maybe tonight, you forget about it, and then you do whatever you possibly can to get 4 or 5 to 6 on this road trip. Because if you don't do that, it could be over before the end of February. And I think that's not what a lot of fans want to hear. I'm usually pretty optimistic when it comes to the Sabres, but they've shown me time and time again that this is the time of the year, or even prior to this, unfortunately, that they have not performed. When it gets tough, when it gets physical. And if they don't show something on Monday night against a really good Kings team, it's going to be really, really ugly moving forward. So I hope they do. I hope they change something up. Granado's maybe switches up the line, switches up the defense, maybe bring somebody up. I don't know. Bring them on the trip. Do something to wake these guys up, because otherwise it could get really bad.
Who's who is it? The big boy down in Rochester. Forward, I forget his name. He plays a little bit of a heavier game. Not NHL ready, but a guy that maybe you could bring into your lineup as,
You want to bring someone on the trip just to send a message?
Yeah,
do it.
100%. I would be in favor of that.
Sit down Quinn. Sit down somebody. Sit down Middlestat at this point. I know he scored a goal today, but other than that, I don't know, man. You got to send a message.
You have to.
If they don't at least perform somewhat admirably on Monday night, I think the Ducks game's probably in question, and same with the Sharks. So we'll see what happens. It's not over yet. Still got 3 games.
It's not close to over yet. It ain't over till it's over.
No. We still got time. They're in a much better position than they usually are. So
per Chris Johnson on Twitter at Reporter Chris, word is the San Jose Sharks and Oilers have re-engaged on Erik Karlsson trade discussions. There are considerable financial hurdles on both ends, but it's at least the second time this season they've explored a potential fit. Is that Connor McDavid putting pressure on management?
Probably. I mean,
I'd have to imagine, right?
Yeah. I mean, well, I don't necessarily think he's that type of guy, but maybe subliminally, they all know that they're not going to win the West with how they're currently constructed. You bring in a guy like Erik Karlsson, obviously, he's not going to fix
healthy. If he stays healthy,
but imagine him on that power play.
They'd be unstoppable. They would absolutely be unstoppable.
I was watching his assists this season. I think Dmitry Filipovich over at The Athletic, or I forget who he works for, maybe Sportsnet, but either way, he tweeted out all of Erik Karlsson's, he called them dimes this season. I think 75% of them were to Timo Meier, but some of the passes and plays he's made this year are just jaw-dropping.
Yeah.
It's Erik Karlsson from the Senators back in the day. He is as good as he's ever been.
We did the same thing with Dahlin too. I think we posted it right around the All-Star break. I took from Dimitri on Dahlin and his ability. They weren't all goals scored or even assists, but just the plays he's made with that toe drag of his at the blue line and using patience and finding
creating
lanes.
space and just doing anything you can to use the amount of ice that's given to you to create chances. That's what the game's all about. They didn't do any of that today, which is really, really unfortunate. But yeah, Carlson with McDavid and Draisaitl would be something to behold.
It would be. It absolutely would. And I mean, the power play is honestly, if this team does make a push to make a playoff spot, I think that's the only reason I would even keep Olofsson around, just for that second unit and stability there, just because, I mean, special teams are crucial when it comes to the postseason. And I would say I'm not saying this in terms of next season, because I think he's gone after next season, because he's got 1 year left on that bridge deal, or that from the arbitrator that he took. But I think power play, his ability to bolster that second unit, or even in times when he fills down the first unit, there is value there, especially in the playoffs. But that being said, I think there are plenty of other players on this team that are very expendable when it comes, not plenty, but there are other players more so than him that are expendable to help improve this team, to make them more fit to play in the playoffs.
For sure.
But yeah, that's all I got, man. Always pleasure to get on here with you.
For sure. I'll be in the building on Monday night. So if anything goes down, I will
have you live tweet, bud. Something.
Yeah, I'll do whatever I need to do. It's always a good time down at Crypto.com Arena, formerly known as Staples Center. We got a 24-person box next to a box of, I think, 19 other Sabres fans. So I hope it doesn't freak them out, but there's going to be a lot of Sabres fans in the building.
Get after it, man.
They'll hear us.
There.
We're going to be pretty.
There's a page on Twitter, the Display Sabres fans.
Yeah.
You get in on that, man.
Yeah, we'll try to bring the crew over. And, believe me, we've started the shout chant in the halls of Staples Centers many times.
I'll have to get some. I'll have to get some 2 goalies, 1 Mike business cards made up and send them out to you and start handing them out over there.
Yeah, Kings fans are an absolute joke. So it's not that much of an accomplishment to take over that building. But we've played well over the years there, especially recently. So hopefully, God willing, we do that on Monday.
I agree. With that being said, man, I'll hang up and listen. I hope everybody enjoys the rest of their Saturday, more so than the previous couple hours of Sabres hockey. And, we'll catch you next time. Hopefully, if me and you can rip another episode of 2 Goalies, 1 Mike here soon. Hopefully get Cully on with us. But, until next time, I am Duane for Cully, Connor Hurley here, all the way from California, chiming in for I'll hang up and listen. You guys have a great weekend, and let's go Sabres.